So hello, Eric. I wanted to make make kind of a short video of what I would call my 10 favorite drummers. Actually, more than 10. I think more like 11 or 12. I should know how many if I'm going to make a video about it, right? But anyway, so in no particular order, okay? I'd like to start with Dave Lombardo. What a great drummer, you know, great skill, great technical skill. I'm no drummer, but he's a beast. He's a beast from Southgate, California. I reckon plays fast. I mean, a lot of people respect him. A lot of drummers respect him. A lot of drummers tried playing his stuff, or did, or made covers of Slayer's music, all over the world. I like how he used the learning that he had before Slayer. He started out in salsa music. As you know, he's Cuban American, so he grew up in a house in which he heard salsa. So he took to Latin percussion, that is used in salsa, and that's how he learned percussion. Maybe at the same time as with the drum kit. I don't know. I don't know much about his personal life as far as his musicianship, but it's interesting how salsa music is fast. It's fast paced, and you have to really be able to, play those congas and whatever those percussion instruments are called, kind of fast sometimes, So he had that, from the salsa. So then, he's in Slayer in Southgate High School, and they're going faster and faster because heavy metal is going faster and faster. So he starts injecting that salsa influence into his drumming, and they end up being one of the fastest thrash bands around, and most aggressive thrash bands around. So very interesting, and hats off to Dave Lombardo for that. So on to another one, a drummer whose drumming blew my mind when I heard him. His name is David Kincaid. He was a drummer in Soulfly. Soulfly has had many drummers in its time. And David Kincaid played drums on the album called Enslaved. And the drumming was just mind-blowing. The double bass drums, really fast, really super fast, precision drumming. He described, I wouldn't say his own drumming per se, but the album Enslaved compared to other music. He said the album Enslaved is like Sepultura's album Arise on crack. Just a beast on the drums. He was in a black metal band called Bork Nagar before Soulfly. And what a beast of a drummer. And then another one I want to make honorable mention of is Igor Cavalera. What a beast of a drummer still, even though he's gone in a different direction musically. He's a professional DJ with his lovely Brazilian wife, and they live in the UK. So they make music for the dance floor. They create it and they DJ it. How many DJs can do that, And he's still involved with his brother Max Cavalera in Cavalera Conspiracy, if they want to call it that sometimes, or sometimes they'll just call it Cavalera. Like in the most recent tour when they did all Sepultura music. And I went to that gig, just really did very well, and everyone loved it. Everyone was like, it was a packed house. What more can I say about Igor Cavalera? Total beast on the drums, very talented and creative guy, creative human being. Anyway, another one which you may not expect, or probably wouldn't expect from me, is a woman named Margaret Becker. I think she's still alive, and she was the drummer of the Velvet Underground. She was never known for being, this like drummer that outshined a bunch of drummers, but I really admired her personally because she was such an open-minded drummer. She just liked to draw from any kind of percussive inspiration, whether it was from Africa or wherever. And she even tried to emulate some of these people in her music. I watched a video of a live show of theirs in which she just kept a basic beat. It was relatively fast for the kind of music that it was, but she was no frills. She just did her drumming duties, and it sounded really great. And I can admire a drummer who doesn't have to show off, who can hold the fort, so to speak, with her drumming. And she was a great drummer. She's not dead. I'm talking as if she was dead or, was a drummer of the past, but as far as I know, but a really great drummer, and I really liked her style. The next one is Bill Ward. I love Black Sabbath, and I really feel their music. It really is deep down in my heart what they did. And Bill Ward, he's jazzy when he wants to be, makes good rolls, can play simply when the song is called for, or when parts of a song are calling for a drummer to play simply, or for a drummer to simply support the song, or serve the song. Just a great drummer with a lot of feeling and a lot of soul. I really love Bill Ward. But even as kind of a side note pertaining to him, he's also a great artist as a visual artist. I was invited by him to his art exhibit, but it wasn't directly personally. He made an invite to all his Twitter followers, so I showed up, and it was really mind-blowing. His art was really awesome. Really, really awesome. Anyway, another one, a drummer I respect a lot, a drummer whose music touched my heart, a drummer whose music I fell in love with, if you will. I want to say that is Marky Ramone, a really great, solid drummer, a veteran drummer. He's been around for the longest time, drummed on so many Ramones records. I would call him the quintessential Ramones drummer. I mean, what could I say? I mean, he was a real professional. He's not dead yet. He's still going strong in his own way. Knew how to tune his drums right, and just knew how to make fills right, and knew how to serve songs right. He had a fall from grace. He got fired from the Ramones in 1983 or 84, if I recall correctly. He had an alcoholism problem, which led to him being inconsistent and trying to be concise, because I don't want to go into too many details. I'm trying to kind of keep my list somewhat brief, But I admire him in that even though he got fired from the Ramones, he came back to the Ramones a few years later. The drummer before him in that time was a guy who drummed for Blondie. The drummer of Blondie, I think his name is Clive. I forget. But his moniker in the Ramones was Elvis Ramone. He didn't last very long in the Ramones, so Marky came back and replaced him for the rest of the Ramones' career. Solid drummer. Love that guy. Tough, I think, Brooklyn guy maybe, or the Bronx. I think Brooklyn. Anyway, great drummer, Marky Ramone. Legend. Deserves that his hands are, imprinted at the Rock of Fame or whatever it's called there at the Guitar Center on Hollywood Boulevard. Yes. Another one is Richie Ramone. He was the fourth drummer of the Ramones. He's the one who replaced Marky. Great drummer. His background was jazz fusion or jazz rock fusion. He was really attuned to that because that's how he started. And so he wasn't even really a Ramones fan when he went into the Ramones. He became a fan after he learned to appreciate the Ramones music after joining. And he was the Ramones' fastest drummer. If fastness is something to be admired for drumming, it isn't the be all end all of drumming. I think that would be an immature thought as a musician, but he could play fast. He is, a drummer of drummers for rock drumming and jazz rock fusion drumming. There's my phone, But I also like how he was on a learning curve in the Ramones, in that as he analyzed the Ramones' music as a newcomer to the Ramones, as a member, that it wasn't jazz music, obviously, that it wasn't necessarily a place where busy drumming or putting in a bunch of fills like a lot of rock bands did before the Ramones and at their time and after, thought was good, or best for their music. But he saw that the Ramones music didn't really need busyness on the drums, that it was actually better for him to kind of scale back on being a drummer show off, and putting his ego out there, and just scaling back and serving the song and realizing something like this. If I just keep the beat and be consistent, that'll serve the overall purpose of the Ramones. Because it seemed to him, based on his book, I read his memoir, that if he could describe in a few simple terms the drum sound of the Ramones, at least while he was in it, it was kind of like a steam train going forward and forward and forward, and just consistently moving forward. And no frills, really, just a consistent drum beat, And that was true. And I said a lot about him. Another one I'd say is Ringo Starr. I really admire him. I admire his overall musicianship. what can I say? I mean, he can sing and play. He just knows how to add, you know, just the right thing to a Beatles song, when you think about the different drumming parts he added to a plethora of Beatles songs. In his solo career, he made some great solo albums. I rented an album from the library years ago, a Ringo Christmas album, and I was really impressed by the musicianship and the creativity of it. I mean, when you're in the Beatles, you're creative, or when you were, right? For the few who were, great musician. And another one, Charlie Benante, he is a total beast of a drummer. I mean, when you listen to songs like Among the Living, Caught in a Mosh, even the Indians, or even songs that are, let's say, more scaled back in tempo, as some Anthrax songs are, he has a fighting spirit in it. When you hear those double bass drums in Among the Living, especially where it goes from, like, say, mid tempo to fast in the earlier part of Among the Living, where it's going dun 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 dun, right? Wow. Even Bill Ward gave accolades to that fighting spirit in his drums, because Bill Ward had a radio show in which he gave accolades to Anthrax and Charlie Benante's drumming. He loves Anthrax, and no wonder. So does the Edge from U2. He's got some Anthrax albums, is what I learned from Frank Bellows' autobiography. I highly recommend it. Digressing. Another drummer, Jim Chapin. We knew the Crucified's music. We checked out the Crucified. He held the fort very well, all throughout the career of the Crucified. The Crucified in their inception were called KGB. They're always, well, back then, all hardcore punk, and played great back then too. Played awesome on the albums on which Mark Solomon sang. I mean, solid drummer, could play fast. He had the look, punk rocker look all the way, and what an awesome transition from that hardcore punk to the self-titled Crucified. What a mind-blowing album for me. Blew my mind. Played awesome snare sound, that like boom, like kind of a heavier snare sound, because he actually took the detached the actual snare from the skin, or whatever that thing's called. Just a different sound for thrash metal, because they're obviously kind of going thrash metal or like a really fast hardcore punk on that one, right? Did great on the Pillars of Humanity. Solid drummer. What can I say? Still on top of his drumming game. Still involved in bands. Still playing in bands. Great drummer. Great guy. Knows how to interact with fans. Chatted with me a little bit from the stage because he was just approachable like that. No ego right there. Love that guy, Jim Chapin. Another drummer whom you may not expect or may have never heard of. His name is Fritz Madden. He would be so flattered probably if he heard this. He was my bandmate. That's not accolades to me. I'm not saying it for that. He was a drummer in a band called Christafari. I mean, I know you've heard of them. Great reggae band, awesome reggae band. All the reggae community, you know what I mean? Like people who are hardcore into reggae, like Rastafarians, and just like reggae enthusiasts, like people whose favorite genre is reggae have heard of Christafari. But anyway, I was in a band with him called the Israelites Band, and we played reggae in there. But that's beside the point. I wanted to talk about his drumming. I like how when he loves a genre of music and can play it, he plays it, and he plays it well, and he plays it on the dot. He plays it, the word perfectly is a strong word, plays it perfectly. If he wants to play a reggae beat, he can play it perfectly. If he wants to play a traditional ska rhythm, he can play it perfectly. And that is total hats off to Fritz Madden, because in that genre of music, reggae and ska, it's really hard to play a reggae rhythm for a drummer if he wasn't immersed in that genre for years or grew up in it. But he can do it, and he's a great reggae drummer. And I'm sure Christafari got a few #1 albums on the Billboard chart with his playing on some of those albums. I'd have to go back to verify that, but the point is he's a great reggae and ska drummer and can play eloquently in those genres. Awesome drummer, great guy. He's got the look for it too. And another one, there's so many great drummers. What can I say? Gene Hoglan, great drummer, solid drummer, can play fast, did great in Dark Angel, did great on Leave Scars, did great on all of it. I did check out Time Does Not Heal. I checked out Death to All. He was in Death. Anyone who can play drums in Death for any length of time is a great drummer, because Chuck Schuldiner, obviously wouldn't get a drummer who couldn't keep up with him or accentuate their music. And I'm sure Death to All is basically a tribute to the band Death, but consisting of all former members of Death. And I highly recommend Death to All. What a great tribute to Chuck Schuldiner's legacy and music. And I really felt his music too. And I'm sure you know that. Anyway, that was a lot to say for a few drummers on this earth. A lot of great drummers in the world. And these guys, these people really, really impressed me, all of them. All right. Have a nice one. Bye.